Hi, and welcome to the Part a Day project. This is the part that we'll be working on today. One thing to note is that this arrow is pointing towards a specific plane, and this will be the right plane of the part. The other thing to note is that this plane has symmetry in both directions along what would be the front plane and the right plane. So we'll be making use of that fact in the creation of our part. Alright, so I'll put the part over here. We'll also note that we're in inch/pound/seconds, so we're going to do that. And we'll note that this bounding box that surrounds the part is 4 inches high, 4 inches wide, and 6 inches deep. So we're going to create this bounding box, and then we'll create the part by partially slicing away and partially adding extrusions. So let's go ahead and do that. The 6-inch side is going to be on the right face, the right plane, so I'm going to make a 4x4 square on the front face. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click on the front face over here and create a sketch. And I want it to be centered. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to create a center line that goes up 2 units. And I'm going to use that with a center rectangle. Grab the wrong tool there. And the way I'm going to do this is drop it here. Alright, so 2 things. I'm going to select this line, hold down my control key, select this line, and use an equal relation. I'm then going to select the bottom of the square and select the origin, select the control key, and make that coincidence. And then I'm going to set the smart dimension to set one of the sides equal to 4. So this locks everything down. All your geometry is black, and if you look down here in the lower right hand corner, you are fully defined. So we're now going to extrude this in 6 inches, but we're going to do it by extruding via the midplane. So I'm going to go Features, Extruded Boss. My distance will be 6 inches, but I want to go not blind, but from the midplane. So now when I do this, if I go ahead and turn up here on the visibility of my primary planes, you'll see that the front plane and the right plane are now embedded in the middle of my part, and that's going to allow me to use symmetry. So I'm going to turn the visibility of those off again. And what we're going to do is we'll come here and sketch on the front plane. Well, actually, why don't I do that just to show you? So I'm going to select the right plane, and I'll left-click on it, and I'll create a new sketch. And so I'm sketching in the middle of the part, but I can still view it from this side. And what I'm going to do is I'll create a line here, and I'll start at this corner. I'll just go to some arbitrary point up here. I'll come across and I'll come down. Now, for this one, I'm going to use a mirror sketch and using symmetry in this fashion. So I'm going to looking for my center point there and come down to the origin. And in doing this, if I look on my diagram, the distance of this piece should be 1.4. So I'll go ahead and put that dimension in. And I'll go 1.4. So now, didn't mean to bring up the help manager. So now I'll go back to my line tool, and I'll just come here and draw another triangle. And now I can use a symmetry constraint to either make this line equal to this line or this line equal to this line. So I'll just make these lines. So I'll select this line, holding my control key down, I'll select the center line and the other line. And over here is your make symmetric relationship. So now again, I'm fully defined. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to do an extruded cut. So we'll select extruded cut. And instead of going just to the blind direction, we're going to go through all both. And we'll accept it and say OK. So now we have our pyramid shape. And one thing that I like to do is when we're working or given an isometric diagram, I like to come up here and set my view orientation back to isometric just to see that the two diagrams they should look the same. Though this one looks like it's slightly not in the isometric. I think if I come back and measure these a little bit, these lines are not exactly. If it was completely isometric, if I drew a horizontal line across here and measured this angle, it should be 30 degrees, and this angle, and it should be 30 degrees. So it looks a little bit off, but I'm not going to bother checking it right now. So now, to make the next cutout, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the front plane. So I'll left-click again, and I'll make my sketch. So in this case, I'm going to create a single cut, and then I'm going to use the mirror tool. Don't really need to, but I'm just providing another way of doing this part. So I am going to select my line tool. I'm going to go up from this corner, again up to the top, just making the same type of triangular sketch. And the distance here, it's being shown over here on the back side. So the width of the part at the top is 2. So the distance that I'm going to need to make my triangle, the base of my triangle, is 1. So I'll come over here with my smart dimension. I'll put that dimension as 1. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an extruded cut. I'm going to do a through all both. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mirror this feature. So I have a boss extrude, I have 2 cuts, and now what I'll do is I'll select the right plane, I'll pre-select it. Up here under my features is my mirror tool, and it's going to ask me for the features to mirror. I can do 2 things. Well, I can do it 3 different ways. I'm in the Property Manager tab right now. I could switch back to the Feature Manager tab and grab it here, or I can just select this little arrow and it will drop down. So in this case, I can select the Cut Extrude. But there's another way of doing it, if I clear that selection, is that this face is created because it's part of the Cut Extrude, so I can just select that face as well. So a bunch of different ways of accessing it. I'll say OK. And now again, I have my parameterable shape. If that's a word. I'll hit Control-7 to put myself into the isometric mode. So what we're going to do here is now make this little triangular piece. Now if you notice, its height is 2 inches, which is half of the total height, and its width is 2 inches. So again, half of the width. So I'm going to make this sketch on my front plane. And all I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to make a center line that goes up a distance of 2. And then I'm going to come over and select my line tool and make a line that goes from here up to here and down to here. Now, I'm going to purposely not close the curve here right now, or close the sketch, because sometimes this is a mistake that people make, and we'll do an extruded boss. It says, should it close the sketch with model edges? In other words, it knows that there is an edge down here, so I'll say yes, and it has created a closed contour. And in this case, I again want to go through all. I'm going to need to add the second direction, and again go through all. So now we have that shape on both sides. If I hit Control-7, we see that we have that little piece going on here. So I'm going to do practically the same thing for this little doorway cutout. I will select the right plane, create a sketch on it, and if you'll notice that it doesn't explicitly have a center line here, but they're showing you it's 1.6 from either side is the outer walls, and then the location for this little doorway is 2.2 and 2.2. So it again has a center. It's centered on the part. So I'm going to create a center line. I had selected, not over there. Try that again. Talking too much. And I'll come up here and I'll just drop my line And the height of this doorway is going to be 2.4. So I'll go ahead. In this case, I could make it 1.2 and use my center rectangle. In this case, I'll make it 2.4. But I can do the same thing with my center point rectangle, because I can just move along this line until I find its center point. So I'll go ahead and now, a lot of times you can't go up here and you're trying to find something, but if I come down, you'll see that there is a coincident relation. So I can select that. So that's going to make my height okay, and then I need to put my dimension in. So I could figure out what 6 minus 1.6 minus 1.6 is, but the other way of doing it is just dimension from this line to this point. Or I can go to this line, whichever one I want to do. So since there's a line-to-line option here, that's what I'm going to choose, because that's, there's a sort of hierarchy. If you can go line-to-line when you're putting a dimension in, that's your best option. You can do a line-to-point, and really the last thing you would want to do would be a point-to-point dimension. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to again make a center rectangle. I'll select somewhere on this line, pull out, and then I'm just going to come down and look for my coincident relation again. In this case, I have to put 2 dimensions in. I need to create its height, which is 1, and its distance again from this edge to the outer edge, and this is going to be 2.2. Now you'll notice that I've drawn 2 complete rectangles in here, but I can't actually create the cutout that I'm looking for in one sketch. So I'm actually going to use this sketch among one is going to be an extrusion and one is going to be a cut. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go Features, Extruded Boss, and now it's asking me to select contours. Now I can select both of them, but the easiest thing to do is select the contour that defines my outer square. And in this case, I'm again going to go through all, and by this time we know that we'll select direction 2 and to go through all as well. I should have selected through all here before I had selected direction 2, and it would have automatically made it. So we're going to do that. And then I'm going to go back and utilize that sketch again to make the cutout. The way I'm going to do that is I open up Boss Extrude, find the sketch. Now I don't double click on it. I'm not going to edit the sketch. I'm just selecting the sketch so that I can use that as an extruded cut. So in this case, the selected contours. I don't want the whole sketch, so I'm going to clear the selections, and then all I need to do is select the edge of that other square. And in this case, we are going to go through all both. All right, so let's put this in isometric mode and see what we got. And now you'll see that there's a little nub sitting out here, and it's not over here. So the question is, was this part that was part of a graphics textbook, was it drawn a little bit incorrectly? In other words, the person who drew it didn't actually realize that this was going to go all the way through? I don't know. Or maybe it's not supposed to go all the way through. So it brings us the ability to actually take a look at one thing here. So what we can do is we can go back to our Boss Extrude and modify it a little bit. So I'm going to go back to the Boss Extrude, and we have 2 directions. So I'm going to turn off direction 2 just for a second. So this one we do want to go all the way through the part, but if I do direction 2 now, instead of doing through all, there's an option to extrude just up to a surface. So if I select that option, I can then select this surface here. And now the extrusion will only go up to that surface. Or I don't need to, that's one option. That's an option if I was sketching onto this plane and going all the way through. But in this case, actually, I don't need direction 2 at all. Right? Whether I don't need it having up to a surface at all, because I'm just coming out from the front plane. So I'll say OK there. And now I have a part that, if I hit Control 7 to put it in isometric view, now exactly identifies the part over here. So let's finish it off by making this little cross shape indentation. So again, I'll create a sketch. Well, in this case, I'm going to go up to my sketch toolbar, select sketch, and come over here. But actually the faster way to do that would be just to right-click, the sketch. When I bring my cursor over, the face is highlighted. So if I right-click on it, I can just do create a sketch on that. All right, so I have a center point here, so I can again create two center point rectangles. And in this case, I'll just draw them. But now I need them to extend a little bit past this surface. One of the mistakes that some people can make, and actually I've made it once or twice when I've made this part, is you have a tendency to say, oh, it's just going to go up to this edge. But if you do that, you'd find out that you're missing some of the material. So I'm actually gotten away from my sketch plane now. How do I get back to it? Well, if I left click over here in the property manager on sketch 6, one of the options is to go normal to again. So if I take a look at it, the distances for either side of these is 0.6. So actually, let me use that dimension. So I'll go from here to here, and wrong location because I'm going from this side. So my dimension is from this edge to that edge, and that's going to be 0.6. And from this edge to this edge is 1. So select this and this and make it 1. Now my sketch isn't fully defined, and this would be one of those things that people might do, like they know that they don't need to define it anymore, but I don't like leaving things undefined. So in this case, I will just select this line, select the control key, select this edge here, and make those collinear. And I'll do the same thing here. I'll just select this edge and this edge, and again make them collinear. So now I can do an extruded cut, features, extruded cut. And in this case, I just want to go down a depth of 0.6. So I will go features, cut extrude, blind, my distance is 0.6, and now I need to select my contour, so I'll select this rectangle and the edge of this rectangle. All right, so my part is created. I can come back here under my Evaluate tab and set them as properties, and we would find out that the volume is 52.14 cubic inches, and the surface area is 106.72. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this part-a-day video, and I'll see you tomorrow.